Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. Let's talk some Sixers basketball, huh? The last we saw the Sixers, well, they just got blown out by the Miami Heat, but I don't really give a damn at all because it's obvious that they're in playoff mode, and let's just get there healthy at this point, and I don't really care what just happened in South Philly as they got blown out. Here's what I know. They're going to play the Boston Celtics in the second round. Here's what I know. Joel Embiid just dropped 52, shooting 20 of 25. Shooting 12 of 13 from the free throw line. Securing the MVP. This guy's a monster. He puts you in a position to succeed. But, yes, there are some questions about the others, and he is going to need help, specifically Tyrese Maxey. Now, you may be thinking, Broads, there's a series before you get to the second round. You can't overlook any 7-game series. Yes, you can. If your team is what you think they are, which I know I feel better about the Sixers than I think most Sixers fans do, unless I'm wrong. See, there's a guard up with a lot of fans, which is fine. I got no issue with it based off of the recent seasons that we've seen. I get it. It's not like I don't understand why. But this version of Joel Embiid allows for me to break through that barricade a little bit. Personally, I have an easier time. If you think your team is what I think this team is, you don't worry about a first-round matchup. Even in the years past, the teams that failed to get out of the second round, there was always a little bit of hesitation. What about Nick Nurse and the Raptors? What about them? Doc Rivers pants Nick Nurse. The team had way more talent. They won that matchup easily. And that's with the team that constantly gets stuck in the second round. I feel this team is better than the previous teams that we've watched in Sixers uniforms. Because, well, you have the leading scorer in the NBA at the center position in a very guard-heavy style of play. Let that sink in. 2 seasons in a row. You have the assist leader on your basketball team as well. The question becomes, will he get the help he needs? Embiid and Harden will be Embiid and Harden. What's Maxey in the matchup against Boston? I don't think he's ready yet, unfortunately. That's no knock on him. I was saying the same thing about Embiid for years. There was pressure because on how we acquired Joel, that he had to step on that court and automatically be an NBA champion. But you have to learn how to win. You have to learn how to go through a playoff run. First off, someone like Maxey playing at Kentucky, not that he was there for 10,000 years, but the journey of a regular season is very toxic. It's taxing on your body. And then after those 82 games, here comes the intensity rising by 200%, and you're playing against grown men. It's a different beast. You have to learn how to get there and then learn how to win there. In a lot of Embiid's seasons, he even said that publicly. I have to allow my body through the regular season to roll a certain way, so when it's the spring, I have something left in the tank. With Embiid, it was about getting the experience he needed and the growing pains to become this version of Joel Embiid. Well, we're kind of dealing with that a bit with Tyrese Maxey. That's why the most recent win against Boston, it was great to see Embiid. That was fantastic. Arguably the best performance I've seen. 52 on that completion percentage, as if we're playing quarterback in the NFL. But from that shooting percentage, 20 and 25, 12 or 13 from the field. His first quarter stat line is what people have in a 48-minute game. He got that in the first quarter. You could see the killer. You could see that this was going to be a long night for Boston. Embiid doesn't have the problem with Boston. It's Maxey. That matchup is problematic for him. He can average 20 points per game against basically every other team in this damn league. The problem is the hump we got to get over is Maxey's biggest matchup. His biggest matchup issue. And that was without Jaylen Brown on the floor. And I don't know, other than Maxey playing better, what you can do. There's no magic potion that Doc Rivers can hand Tyrese Maxey. I was almost wondering, would it be better in the minds of Sixers fandom if the Sixers were to lose that game against Boston, but Maxey provided 28 points? Maxey's burst was obvious. He was scoring at will. He was displaying a skill set that you feel in a 7-game series can contribute to a winning formula. But maybe the Sixers fell, which would put them at 0-4 against Boston on the season. It's an interesting hypothetical because I feel like it left a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling in everybody's stomachs. It was a bad taste in the mouth on how they won that game against Boston because the sloppiness at the end. That can't happen, dude. Fouls. Giving Tatum a chance to tie it at the buzzer. That was a joke on how ugly and sloppy it got. But my guy PJ, with some wide open looks, drilled it from deep. That was incredible. I've heard some criticism on Doc because, and this makes me laugh, because of the way that Harden, during the game, put his fingerprints on it by saying, let's put Tobias in the dunker spot, move PJ into the corner, let's see if we can get something going with that. And it's like, oh, Harden is telling Doc what to do. Doc blows. No, this is what winning caliber players do. This is more, for me, and I hate to go back to Ben, and it does tie back to Ben a lot of the times, but it's to put it on display on what a real point guard does and how someone who really understands the game and sees the floor properly can adjust in game. This is what great players do. Someone like Chris Paul, you don't think Chris Paul goes back to the bench and has conversations with the coaching staff on what he's seeing when he's out there? This is really showing you the strengths of what James Harden brings to the table. This is why it's important to have a floor general that can see and understand the game and break down the game smoother than a dude that can't shoot a basketball and just plays in an open floor. You don't think stars in this league have input during timeouts on the rhythm, on thoughts? And let me be honest with you. Every person who despises the head coach, let me ask you a question. First off, we saw Doug Peterson in the Super Bowl. Nick Foles walked over and go, Philly, Philly. So the quarterback goes to the head coach and has his input in. Come on, stop it. I get it. There's an agenda because you fear Doc Rivers. But it's getting stretched to this unbelievable degree. Anyway, where was I going with that? Before I brought up that Doug Peterson point. Oh, yes. Put yourself in Doc Rivers' shoes. You're telling me you would put PJ Tucker, knowing the issues of him with the 3-point, you think it's an obvious choice. If Doc did that alone, to summarize here, you would have probably freaked out that Doc Rivers made that decision to put PJ Tucker in the corner and switch Tobias if you didn't learn that James Harden said to do it. Let's not act like he put J.J. Redick in the dunker spot and put somebody else out there. Come on. He put PJ in the dunker spot and had Tobias hanging out in the corner. That's not some egregious thought process. So let's settle down on that. There's fair criticism here, though. There's a clip flying around when Doc Rivers was on ESPN getting interviewed about the all-bench lineup. If he goes all-bench lineup, I'm going to rip him into shreds. I'm going to annihilate him. Not actually, just through words. Of course, I would never murder human beings. That can't happen. Embiid and Harden, one of those two, have to be on the floor at all times. They have to be playing 40-plus minutes of action out of the 48. So if that's not the case, then yeah, I'm with you. We'll have the pitchforks, reasonably so, about how that's unacceptable. The rotations are going to be fascinating. George Niang against the Celtics, not that great of a matchup. I also feel you need the spacing on the floor of George Niang and hitting some threes. Could it be a home game? It's not going to be many games that Niang balls out against Boston. It's a similar feeling that we have with Tyrese Maxey right now, but we need it. Seems like they cause us a matchup problem, which blows that you're seeing them so early in the postseason, because if you flip-flopped the Bucks with the Celtics and you saw the Bucks in the second round compared to the Celtics, and if you were to see the Celtics in the third round, there's a totally different tone surrounding what we're about to witness this spring. But this is where you're at. And there's parts of me that think about the Capitals and the Penguins. And the Penguins, Sidney Crosby, continued to crush Alexander Ovechkin year after year. But eventually, the Capitals broke through, and then they won their Stanley Cup. They continued to run into each other in the postseason. Pittsburgh won. They won. They won. Sidney Crosby had the Stanley Cups. Could Alexander Ovechkin find a way to get over the hump? He did. He eventually did. Is this what's happening here in Philadelphia right now? It just seems with Boston, and I feel good about the Sixers' chances. I do. I'm not saying it's automatic. I'm not saying it's 100% they win the series, but I think they have a good chance, just like the Celtics have a good chance in this. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be a grind. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be intense. It's going to be a very wild ride. But with Joel Embiid playing at this level, you're in it. It just comes down to what else do you have surrounding him. Now, Ty brought this up on The Fanatic, and I don't disagree with him. But if you're looking for 4 wins, and I want to kind of lay this out there for you to see where our mindset is on what they need to do. If Embiid's going to win you 2 games, where you solely look at the 48 minutes, go, dude, that guy, he gave you 48. He gave you 48 and 17 with 7 assists. You won because Embiid was a monster. He's going to have to be fantastic for all of your wins. You're not going to win games in the postseason if Embiid isn't some sort of dominant effect. But there's some nights where he has 38 and 12, and then there's some nights where he can have 49 and 17 with 6 assists. You see the difference? So bear with me for a second. 2 of the games, it's going to be Embiid's night. One of those wins has to be a Harden night. To get the 4th win, is it fair to say that some sort of collective group, whether one guy goes off or it's 2, Maxey gets 20, Tobias gets 22. Some combination of the crew other than those 2 players, Embiid, that might be the night where Embiid has 32 instead of 49. But it has to be a collective unit with the others to win you a 4th. That's how you're going to have to grasp your 4 wins, because it's impossible to demand Joel to give you 52 like he did in their last game against Boston for 4 wins. It's just impossible. So I think. Although I can't rule anything out with the man playing this possessed. And do you have faith that the collective group can do that one time? And that's why I'm holding my hat on this, that the Sixers have a good chance. I expect Maxey to struggle. I expect us to be disappointed in Maxey. I just don't think he's ready yet. This is part of that learning curve. But there's a lot of skill in that kid. And if we need one game, can there be one game where there's something in it? Let's say the first 4 games, it's not it. But he figures something out through those 4 games where game 5 or game 6, maybe it's game 6 at home, we go, whoa. Maxey had 18. Maxey had 22. And in the previous outings, he shot 2 for 12 with 8 points. And Tobias flirts in 19 points. Now, between those two, there's something reasonable there. Maybe that's not enough. But I'm just throwing numbers off the top of my head here. Maybe the numbers are a little bit higher. My point is, one game. If you get your 2 from Embiid and your 1 from Harden. Out of 7, one game. Is there enough skill to do it? And I believe the answer is yes. If it plays out that way, which we both feel is a fair way to kind of look at a potential series win against Boston. If you ask me, do I have more faith in Maxey or do I have more faith in Tobias? Because think about how close that game was. And they didn't have Jaylen Brown. I'm acknowledging that. And not every game plays out the same. But that was a game where Maxey and Tobias played bad. They were both putrid. Well, if Maxey still stinks and still can't do it, what if Tobias was just better? And Maxey still can't be the Maxey we need. Just Tobias was better. Is that enough? And I feel Tobias has a better shot of balling out than Maxey does. I don't know how that makes you feel. Maybe that makes you nervous. Maybe you think that that's not enough and Maxey's the X factor. And if he's unwilling, or not unwilling, but not capable, then it's all lost. I don't feel that way. I have more respect for Tobias's game. There's times where he falls short and it's flat, but there's also times where defensively he's very engaged. He gives you some size there. He could make a difference on the defensive end. And there's nights where he does do his thing offensively. Misses too many layups for my liking. But I can't rule it out. He's an overpaid player. But sometimes the money makes his game get criticized more than it deserves. It didn't settle anybody down, that last win. I saw that. The ending blew my mind. Totally unacceptable. But Embiid playing with James Harden, those two, they give me a lot of faith. I've watched a lot of hoops over the years when the Sixers weren't even involved. And they were going through losing seasons just to get a player like this. And during those NBA Finals, who was out there? LeBron, Steph Curry. When you watched the NBA Finals, you saw players that just didn't make sense. And you realized what it was going to take to get that far. What it was going to take to compete for the Larry O'Brien. You have that. This level of Embiid wasn't here last year. This level of Embiid was never here. I'm starting to question, is this the ceiling? At this point, I can't rule it out. It would be foolish for me to think that Embiid can't even get better than this. Although he's automatic from the nail. And another Doc Rivers point, the nail in the offense, Doc Rivers implemented that into the game. Implemented that into Embiid. Embiid doesn't miss. And not that I want to go back to the Ben thing, but I just think about it sometimes. If Embiid, who started playing the game of basketball at what, 15, 16 years old, if he was able to play the NBA game for the last 5 years or so, however long it's been, all this time flies by. It's got to be longer than that, no? How many seasons has Embiid been here at this point? 16, 17. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of playing hoops. But he also had some injury stuff and all that. But the 7 years on the floor, it's important to mention the years on the floor. If he was able to play the game with a real point guard for that long, he's played with Harden for what? The end of a trade deadline in one full season? And look at the way that the chemistry is built? And think about how many steps he's taken forward because of how much the game makes sense now from a basketball X and O standpoint and how they're able to operate a real offense because the guy with the ball is actually a threat. Imagine being able to do that for 7 years and think about the growth and how much farther along he could possibly be. There's a couple different ways to look at this. Maybe he learned how to not approach the game because of Ben. That guy's soft. That guy's a you-know-what. That guy has no balls. I want to be the complete opposite of Ben. Maybe that snuck into his brain, which made him the player that he is. This guy's a fraud. I will not be a Ben Simmons. At the same time, if you're able to go to work every day with a professional like James Harden, not that they had the chance to get James Harden at that point, or would it make sense to get James Harden, but I'm just saying. Going through the NBA season for 7 years with a professional point guard and a guy that can show you what to do to reach that max, to reach your highest capabilities, that probably goes farther than being paired up with a player to show you who not to be. But maybe not. I don't know. Everything happens for a reason, I guess. But yeah, that snuck into my thoughts the other day for some reason. I don't know. Sometimes it ties back to that loser too many times than I like to admit. But it's so hard for me not to compare, even though I should stop comparing regimes. Or not so much regimes, but the past. But it's hard not to. Because we're stuck and fixated on an Eastern Conference Finals for a reason. Because that second round has been hard to climb over. And the reason why is because, you know. Anyway, calls on the Sixers are here. So let's go to the phones. Let's take a listen. And then let's react.
Bro, how's it going, man? I don't know about you, man, but I'm waiting for the playoffs to start. I feel like we're sort of in the dog days of the season. Like, everyone's just waiting everyone wants the real basketball to start now. Great win the other night by the Sixers, Joel 52 stuff. I don't know. I can't get too excited about it because I feel like that defensive game plan that the Boston Celtics throughout that game, they're not going to use that in the playoffs against Joel Embiid. Like, no coach in their right mind is just going to let Joel Embiid go one-on-one at the top of the key all game long. Like, you're just asking for trouble. So, I mean, it was a great win and stuff, but, like Joel said, we still got a long way to go. But, hopefully they keep going, and let's go Sixers.
Let's go Sixers. So a few thoughts there. No Jaylen Brown, which definitely changes what the Celtics can do and how the game was played. I believe that you go very vanilla with your game plan in these level of matchups because you know the schedule and you know you're going to see each other in the postseason. Why give the opponent an advantage by showing them something that you may use when the games matter more? No doubt. So that's half of my brain. The other half wonders, did they see something that they think is a recipe? Hear me out. Embiid won't beat you alone. If Embiid has his 52, does Boston look at it this way? With Jaylen Brown back, if Embiid's going to take 2-point jump shots all night long, let him take 2-point jump shots. We'll live with that. Because Maxey is going to be a no factor. Tobias in his role is always out of whack. I'm putting our feet in the shoes of Boston. PJ Tucker could be irrelevant just standing around. He may get a rebound here and there, but we can take him out of the game as much as we can. We can live with 2-point jump shots from Embiid. Let him get his. But if we're eliminating the rest of his teammates, they're not getting many touches. That means they're going to be out of rhythm if they ever do get a shot. We know we're in the head of Maxey, and the addition of Brown can help out their game offensively, looking at their last effort, and they realize that's not really who we are because Jaylen Brown wasn't on the floor. Now, maybe that's me not properly processing it all, because the other half of my brain goes, get the ball out of Embiid's hands. Don't let him beat you, and we'll live with Tobias taking shots. We'll live with PJ taking shots. We'll live with Maxey taking shots because we know we're in his head. So there's two ways to look at this. Maybe they throw both of those concepts out there at some point and try and figure out which one works best throughout those 7 games. Because in theory, there's legitimacy to both. In today's era, living with the other team taking 2-point jump shots from the nail in a game that's bombs away threes, and how quickly you can get separation and how fast you can score points by shooting the 3 ball. You're going to let the other team live with 2s? But yeah, I mean, more of my brain says you go very vanilla, you run up and down the floor, you get your conditioning going, and whatever happens, happens. That's probably what they were thinking during that final run. I'll tell you what, though, when you see guys like White, when you see guys like Malcolm Brogdon, and then you compare it to what the Sixers deal with their bench units and some of their secondary players, it's night and day. It is night and day. No denying it.
So, a little bit conflicted about the victory. Obviously, it's great to get a win against the shitty Boston Celtics. The good, Embiid the monster. Harden did exactly what he needed to do, and it was great to see PJ come out of his hibernation from scoring. So hopefully we're going to see this guy a little bit more. But on the bad, I mean, Maxey, Tobias, Melton, I just felt this is unacceptable at this stage of the game. This is too critical of a game, too big of a stage to be shrinking and folding like a cheap chair. They didn't have a good game, and I'm just, moving on forward in the playoffs. It just can't happen. So hopefully between Doc and the players, they could figure something out. But, it's great to get the W, but there are still some things I'm still concerned.
Sure, I get concerns. Now, Tobias did struggle. Tobias last year in the playoffs, though, it seems to get forgotten how much of an impact he made. I don't want that to get lost. Tobias last year in the postseason was a very, very good player for you. Is he going to be that? I don't know. I have no idea. I've seen him do it before. I haven't seen Maxey do it before. And that's where my personal biggest question mark is. I've seen PJ Tucker in the playoffs make an impact. I've seen Tobias make an impact. I haven't seen Maxey against the Celtics. Maxey's skill level, it smacks us in the face. We're aware. But there's one team that has his number. So to bring it full circle, it keeps going back to that question. Let's say Maxey just can't figure it out. Is there enough here if PJ is making the impact, if Tobias is making the impact that night, where the loss of Maxey's game, who will get picked on defensively, and maybe that's a big part of it. Attacking. They're taking advantage of mismatches, and they know with the smaller guard, they can go through him and put up a lot of points. Is that taking a toll on the way that he addresses the game? Because think about it. Every possession down the floor defensively, you're worried about yourself. You're worried about the fact that they're going to expose you. They're going to get buckets. They're going to take a lead on you. And then you let the game run away from you. It gets away from you. Just asking questions, that's all. I'm just asking questions.
Hey, bros. Good game tonight between Celtics and Sixers. I remember last time I called when Embiid barely got the shot off after the buzzer. You were pretty pissed off at the fact that I had called. So like, you don't want to hear a good game from a Boston fan. Well, here's a good game after you guys won. Embiid with a fantastic performance. Just killing it on the jump shot, man. Aggressive on defenses as well. He had a couple blocks. Just a beast. And maybe we'll match up in the playoffs. So.
Oh, we will. We will match up in the playoffs. Obviously, that call seemed to be right after the game was over. But, yeah, we'll meet up in the playoffs. Wow. What are the odds? Second round is this. So many thoughts, so many emotions. Really is. I guess we'll do one more and then wrap it up.
My issue, right? Joel Embiid, he can put the Sixers on his back. He can put the city of Philadelphia on his back, basically. But if we keep having these sloppy turnovers, we're going to ruin Embiid's legacy. And the turnovers come from everybody. I mean, they come from Tobias Harris. They come from, they came from Matisse. They come from Harden way too often at the end of this last few games. I mean, you blink and Harden has given up 5, 6 turnovers. There needs to be a solution at the end of this year to make Joel Embiid happy if we don't get to the finals and win.
I'll worry about that later. The Harden thing, there was a recent game where it was a little lackadaisical with the basketball. Turnovers are crucial in the postseason. I also know that this guy knows how to dish the rock. I know that he sees the floor very well and gets his teammates wide open looks, and he knows how to distribute the basketball at a high, high clip. Just in general, when watching the sport of basketball, yes, turnovers need to be very minuscule, especially when the possessions get less because the game slows down. James Harden knows what he's doing. And there was a couple games there toward a little lackadaisical. Okay, all right. I think the players are in go mode at this point. Let's just get to the postseason so we can go full go mode. So it's hard for me to judge a lot of the last little bit, even that Boston game, because you're up, because you know it's your biggest rival, and you know what's about to happen in a few weeks. At the same time, we're so close to game 82. We're so close to game 82. So it's a weird dynamic for sure. All right, everyone. Appreciate you guys watching. I love you guys. You're the greatest. We'll be talking soon.